On June 25, 2023, Mpho Ntloge, better known on the streets as Sdomane 55, drove into a car wash in Mabopane Block D. It was a place he visited often. Nothing about that day seemed unusual. He came to clean his car, relax with his friends, and enjoy the usual laughs and good music. But what he didn't know was that death was already waiting for him. Ntloge wasn't just any man. He was a gangster, a leader, and a symbol of crime that felt untouchable. From hijackings to armed robberies, he had created chaos across Pretoria and flaunted the rewards of his crimes on social media like they were trophies. People saw him as more than a gangster. They saw him as a myth. But on that day, that myth came to an end. In a matter of seconds, everything changed. So what really happened at the car wash that day? Who wanted Pretoria's most wanted gangster gone so badly that they pulled the trigger in broad daylight? This is the story of the hit that took down Pretoria's most wanted gangster. Mpho Ntloge was born and raised in the tough neighborhoods of Sdomane. From the very start, life was an uphill battle. He grew up in a household where struggle wasn't something spoken about. It was lived day after day. His family wasn't wealthy, and there was no safety net when things went wrong. As a young boy, Mpho was described by neighbors as quiet but observant. He watched everything. The guys who had the nicest clothes, the ones who rolled by in cars that made the whole block turn their heads. They were respected, they were feared, and they never seemed to want for anything. That image stuck with him. In his mind, they had found the escape route from poverty, and he wanted in. By his teens, Mpho wasn't just watching anymore. He was moving. Small errands for local thugs turned into bigger jobs. Soon enough, he was part of a fast-growing network of car hijackers that operated across Sdomane. The jobs were dangerous, but the rewards came fast, and with it came fast attention. That's when the nickname, Sdomane 55, started spreading. No one's sure where the 55 came from. Some say it was his lucky number. Others think it marked a crew or a code. But Sdomane became more than a name. It stood for confidence, defiance, and danger. While most gangsters kept a low profile, Sdomane did the opposite. He used Instagram and Facebook as if they were his personal movie sets. One day, he'd post videos of laughing with friends. The next, he'd be flexing in front of flashy cars. He once even live-streamed himself inside what was believed to be a hijacked vehicle, cruising through Pretoria as if it were nothing. But his life wasn't just about crime and clout. In a strange twist, Sdomane was also a loyal member of the Zion Christian Church. On Sundays, he would wear his ZCC uniform and take part in prayers, singing hymns like any other believer. It was a complete contrast to the life he lived Monday to Saturday. Some saw it as hypocrisy. Others thought he was battling demons, caught between the man he wanted to be and the one he had become. Maybe he felt guilty. Maybe the church gave him peace in a life full of noise. Maybe it was both. But one thing was certain. Mpho Sdomane Ntloge was living on borrowed time. Sdomane wasn't just involved in crime. He became the face of it. His crimes weren't messy or random. There was a method behind them. He and his crew moved with structure, almost like a military unit. They didn't rely on luck or brute force. They gathered information. They studied their targets. They picked their moments with care. Their favorite hunting ground became areas like four-ways, wealthy suburbs where luxury cars were common. Well-dressed professionals driving alone made for easy targets. These hijackings weren't clumsy or rushed. Everything was planned. The operation ran like clockwork. One man would approach with a calm but firm. The second would quickly take the driver's seat. A third, sometimes in another vehicle, would help make the escape clean. No shouting, no wild threats, just cold instructions delivered with steady voices. Victims often said the same thing. It felt like the hijackers had done this dozens of times, and they had. Once the vehicle was secured, they moved fast. Sometimes, they drove it to secluded locations where trackers could be disabled. Other times, it went straight to a chop shop. Within hours, the car would vanish into black market networks, stripped and sold in parts or driven across borders. The law was watching, but Sdomane always seemed one move ahead. People started to talk. Some said he had connections inside the system, that someone was tipping him off when the heat got too close. He wasn't just dodging patrols, he was outsmarting investigations. He knew when to vanish and when to show up again, bolder than before. Some called it luck, others called it genius. But no one could deny this. He had control, but one hijacking would change everything. In the early months of 2021, the streets of Fourways, Johannesburg, were bustling as usual. Among the residents going about their daily routines was Abongale Majova. On this particular day, she was on a mission to deliver medication to a friend battling the flu. As she pulled up at the gate of a residential complex, waiting for it to open, a Toyota Avanza rolled up behind her. Nothing seemed strange at first, but in seconds, the calm was shattered. Doors flew open. Men rushed toward her car with guns in their hands and their faces hidden under hoods. Abongo panicked. She tried to speed off, but they moved fast. One of them smashed her rear window. Another unlocked the back door and jumped inside. A third shoved a pistol in her face. His voice was calm but firm, giving orders like he had done this 100 times. Shaking and terrified, she gave up the fight. They didn't just take her car. They took her with them. They drove for what felt like forever. Abongail had no idea where they were headed. Eventually, they reached a shack hidden in a quiet area. That's where they stripped the car of its tracker so it couldn't be traced. But it didn't stop there. They took her bank cards, forced her to give up her PINs, and demanded her iPhone. One of the men made her unlock it. It was a full robbery, with every move planned out like a script. Once they had taken everything they wanted, they didn't leave her at the shack. Instead, they drove her to another location, just as quietly, just as efficiently, and dropped her off. And then came the most shocking part. Mpho Ntloge went on Instagram Live. There he was, behind the wheel of Abongail's stolen BMW, talking to the camera like it was a regular day. His voice was calm. He dropped motivational lines, cracked jokes, and threw in warnings to anyone who doubted him. This wasn't just a live stream, it was a performance, a message. He was untouchable, and he wanted everyone to see it. For law enforcement, the live stream was a gift. It showed the stolen vehicle, it showed Sdomane's face, it gave clues about his location. It was evidence handed over in high definition. But in a twist no one expected, it wasn't the police who found him first. It was the street he once ruled. And they weren't there to scroll or like his videos. They were there to end them. It was a clear Sunday afternoon, June 25th, 2023. The car wash in Mabopane Block D was full of life. People were washing cars, talking, laughing, and playing music from their phones. It was just another normal day in Pretoria. Mpho Ntloge, known as Sdomane 55, was there too. He stood out like he always did, wearing expensive clothes, smiling, and acting like he had nothing to worry about. Some people saw him as a local celebrity. Others feared him. He was known for hijackings, robberies, and showing off stolen things on social media. That day, he was hanging out with friends, laughing and relaxing. He had no idea that someone had come there for him. Two men were walking toward the car wash, one from the left, the other from the right. They didn't shout, they didn't run, they looked calm like they had done this before. One of them got close, too close. Then he pulled out a gun and fired the first. Before the crowd could react, more followed. The first hit Sdomane point blank. He knew exactly who he came for. At the same time, the second gun opened fire into the crowd, spraying bullets in every direction. It was fast, violent, and terrifying. People dropped to the ground. Some ran for cover behind walls and parked cars. Screams filled the air. Within seconds, the shooters were gone. Their getaway car sped off. The sound of gunfire still echoed, and the smell of gunpowder lingered. Sdomane lay on the ground. The man who once showed off stolen cars and laughed in front of cameras was silent. No more posts, no more flashy clothes, no more running the streets. It was over. Two innocent people were also hit during the shooting. They were rushed to the hospital, badly injured. They had nothing to do with Sdomane. They were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. News of the shooting spread quickly. Videos showed the panic, the noise, and Sdomane's body lying on the concrete. Social media blew up. Some were shocked. Others weren't surprised. Many said it was bound to happen. He had made too many enemies and lived too loudly. Later that day, police confirmed they were looking for two suspects. They offered a reward for any tips that could lead to arrests. But people didn't need police to tell them what it was. This wasn't just a it was a message. Someone had decided they'd had enough of Sdomane, enough of the fear he brought, enough of the crimes, enough of the show. And whoever sent that message made sure everyone heard it. The news of Mpho Ntloge 55 Ntloge's death spread fast. Within minutes, his name flooded WhatsApp groups, Twitter spaces, and Facebook timelines across Pretoria. Videos from the car wash were already circulating. Photos of his lifeless body hit the internet. The streets buzzed louder than ever. But this time, Sdomane wasn't around to enjoy the spotlight. Pretoria didn't react with one voice. The city split in two. On one side were those who called him a legend. They didn't care about his criminal record. To them, Sdomane was more than a headline. Supporters posted old photos, shared memories, and filled the comments with "Rest easy, King," and "Gone too soon." Some even wrote that he had died like a boss. It didn't matter what the police had said. It didn't matter what he had done. What they saw was someone who had played the game hard and lived without fear. But not everyone saw a hero. On the other side were people who had stayed quiet while he was alive. Victims, families, mothers who had begged their sons not to follow his path. People who had sat frozen behind the wheel while someone with a gun pulled them out of their own car. To them, the tributes felt like a slap in the face. How could anyone celebrate the man who had taken so much? They remembered the threats, the robberies, the trauma that never made it into Instagram clips. They watched in anger as the media called him a local icon or a well-known influencer, barely mentioning the stolen cars, the police investigations, or the fear he left behind. In the crimes seemed to vanish, and that didn't sit right. After the of Mpho Ntloge, many expected a major shift in Pretoria's criminal underworld. However, there's been very little information about what happened to his gang. No public arrests, no big police operations, no more flashy videos online bragging about stolen cars or money. It's almost like the group disappeared. That silence has led many to believe one of two things. Either the gang disbanded completely, or they decided to move differently, keeping a low profile and avoiding the kind of attention Sdomane brought on them. But when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, Sdomane's didn't stop the problem. Car hijacking in South Africa is still alive and dangerous. In fact, it remains one of the most common and violent crimes in the country. Between April and June 2024 alone, over 5,400 carjackings were reported across South Africa. That's an average of about 60 cars stolen every single day. Compared to the same time in 2023, it's only a small drop, just under 1%, and in some areas, the numbers are actually going up. The Western Cape saw hijackings rise by over 17%, and in the Eastern Cape, the jump was even worse, with a spike of more than 30%. So, while the numbers may look steady or slightly better at a national level, on the ground, many communities are seeing things get worse. And the criminals? They've adapted. Their methods have changed. One of the most common tricks being used again is the tap-tap method. Here's how it works. You're driving along, maybe on your way home or to work, and suddenly the car behind you taps your bumper. Just a little bump. Naturally, you think it's an accident. So you pull over to check the damage or talk to the other driver. But that's when they strike. The moment you step out of your car or even just roll down the window, you're surrounded. Men jump out, take your keys, and force you away from the car. It's quick, brutal, and leaves the victim shocked and helpless. Another growing trend is the use of kidnappings during hijackings. Instead of just taking the car and driving off, some gangs now take the driver with them. Victims are held hostage while their bank cards are emptied. In some cases, they're forced to unlock phones, hand over pins, or even stay in the car for hours, so the gang can delay the time it takes before the car is reported stolen. By the time help is called, it's already too late. The car has been stripped, sold, or used in another crime. So, while the someone like Sdomane may have removed a loud and flashy criminal from the streets, the system that produced him is still in place. The demand for stolen cars, the networks that move them across provinces or borders, and the poverty and desperation that push young men into this world, none of that has changed. Car hijacking is still a major problem in South Africa, and despite the fall of one of its most notorious figures, the streets remain just as dangerous. The criminals are still out there, only now they've learned to move quieter, smarter, and faster.